My fiancée disappeared 2 weeks before our wedding for her bachelorette party, only to return just days before the wedding and surprised to find it cancelled. I, a 24-year-old man, was supposed to get married 3 days ago, but had to cancel everything because Marcia, my fiancée, also 24, did something really horrible. We've been together for the past 5 years since college, and earlier this year, we got engaged. We were very happy together, and I was super excited about the wedding until 2 weeks ago. Everything suddenly changed because one morning, when I woke up, she was gone. She didn't leave a note, a message, or any explanation. Of course, I panicked. I tried calling and messaging her, but she didn't respond. Worse, her phone was off the entire day. I asked her family, but they had no idea either. When I tried contacting her friends, none of them answered. At first, I thought she had gotten cold feet and run away. But as time went on, I started thinking that maybe something bad had happened to her. I was on the verge of reporting her missing when, very late at night around 4 a.m., I finally discovered what had really happened and why she had disappeared. She didn't even have the decency to inform me herself. I found out when one of her friends posted a bunch of photos on Instagram. They were partying at a bar. Luckily for me, they tagged the bar in their stories and posts. When I looked up the place online, I realized they were in Spain. I was furious because she was getting drunk with her friends while I was going out of my mind with worry. So I immediately messaged her, telling her that I knew where she was. I also told her that if she didn't come back on the next flight, the wedding would be cancelled. I sent her a long message expressing how disappointed I was with her behavior. She had ignored me all day and didn't even have the courtesy to let me know before leaving for a vacation with her friends. I was livid and didn't bother to hide it in the messages I sent after seeing her friends post. But even then, she didn't respond immediately. I had to wait until the next evening for her to finally call me. That was one of the most disappointing phone calls of my life. When she finally called, instead of deeply apologizing and trying to fix the situation, she made things even worse. That's why I ended up canceling the wedding. When I answered the call, I was very cold with her and she noticed immediately. Instead of acknowledging what she had done, she got defensive. She told me that her college friends had been planning this for her for a long time and only informed her after everything was paid for. She knew we had already discussed bachelor and bachelorette parties and that I didn't like them. That's why we decided not to have those kinds of parties. But a few days before the trip, when her friends contacted her and told her about it, she felt like she had to go because it would be rude to decline after all the arrangements and payments had been made. She had known about this 3 days before the trip, but didn't tell me. That upset me even more. Of course, I started yelling at her over the phone about her behavior, but even then, she didn't seem to feel the slightest remorse and kept defending herself. She said she knew that if she discussed it with me, I wouldn't agree, which is why she felt she had to hide it and go anyway. Supposedly, although I don't know if it's true or not, she tried to contact me the day after arriving in Spain, but her phone wasn't working. Afterward, she forgot because she was having so much fun with her friends. It was crazy how something as important as informing me about her whereabouts could simply slip her mind, especially when she was doing something so wrong. For some reason, she just couldn't understand that what she had done was not okay. She kept defending herself, saying that she'd been with me since she was 18 years old and deserved to have some kind of life experiences, whatever that means, before finally settling down with me. I had no idea what she was talking about. And after a certain point, I became extremely upset. I told her I wanted her to come back on the next flight, and that if she didn't, our relationship would be over, and there would be no wedding. She responded that she wasn't going to come back on the next flight because she and her friends had paid for a 2-week vacation and would only return a few days before the wedding. She also told me I just had to deal with it. Before I could even respond, she hung up the call. When I tried calling her back, she didn't answer. I was so angry that I kept sending her messages for 2 more days until I finally gave up. Clearly, partying with her friends was more important to her than her fiancé, or even her own wedding, something we had been planning for months. I even told her family everything. From what I know, they tried to contact her and convince her to return, but she wouldn't respond to them either. So eventually, I did what I had to do. I canceled the wedding. I didn't make any formal announcement. I simply contacted all the guests and sent them a message saying the wedding had been canceled. I also made sure to tell them not to talk to Marcia about it and explained exactly why I was canceling the wedding. I spoke to the vendors, dealt with cancellation fees, and planned to recover the money from Marcia later. But the most important thing for me was to teach her a lesson, and I think that's where I may have gone wrong. Both sets of parents weren't happy with what I did. They wanted me to at least talk to her, wait for her to return, and then have a conversation. But I wasn't willing to do that because I was too angry and hurt. Just to clarify, we had never had issues like this in our relationship. Like any couple, we sometimes argued over small things, but they were insignificant, and we always found a solution. That's why we had been together for almost 6 years. I had never felt too young to get married or uncertain about her. I thought she felt the same way, but when she told me she wanted to have life experiences before settling down with me, I felt very betrayed. I felt like maybe I had overreacted. A couple of days ago, she finally returned from her trip and came straight to my house, but I refused to let her in. She arrived in the afternoon, and I didn't even open the door. I told her from inside to leave. We argued a bit, and she told me I couldn't do this to her because we were supposed to get married in a few days. She said all the arrangements had already been made, so I should talk to her and work things out instead of acting immaturely. That's when I gave her the news. I opened the door because I wanted to see her face and told her the wedding had been cancelled. She had no right to act surprised because I had told her exactly what I would do if she didn't come back soon. I simply followed through with what I said. She was in shock, and I could see she was very affected. Within seconds, she started crying and telling me that after being together for so long, I couldn't just leave her over something like this. She started apologizing over and over, saying she was willing to do whatever it took to make it up to me, but I had to marry her. It was very hard for me, but I knew I couldn't forgive her. So I just closed the door. She kept crying and begging me to talk to her for about 20 minutes before finally leaving. I know she's now staying with her parents and is completely devastated about what happened. That's why I feel so guilty. Her parents have been in contact with me and told me she doesn't want to eat or leave her room. The only thing she asks is whether I've agreed to talk to her. They don't say it outright, but I can tell from their tone that both her parents and mine think I acted too hastily and maybe a bit harshly in handling the situation. After yesterday, I've started questioning it myself. Aside from the college friends who went on the trip with her, all the guests received a message from me informing them about the wedding's cancellation and the reasons behind it. Most people didn't reply except to console me, but I know some, who were close to Marcia, took the liberty of forwarding her my message despite me asking them not to talk to her about it. When they did, she didn't take it seriously because she thought they were joking and trying to scare her into coming back. Now, of course, she regrets everything she did. She has been sending messages to everyone, saying she's very sorry because she knows she let everyone in her life down, especially me. Since I have her blocked, she can't contact me directly, so she's been asking others to pass along her messages. All those messages are apologies. She tells me how much I meant to her and how much she would hate to lose me forever. She says she still wants to marry me and doesn't care if we don't have the wedding we had planned. She just wants to be with me and knows she made a huge mistake. She says she'll never do anything like this again. I'm summarizing because it would be too much to copy and paste all those messages, but people have been forwarding them to me. For some reason, I feel very guilty about this, especially after yesterday. As I said at the beginning, I was supposed to get married yesterday. When I woke up, it hit me hard to realize that day should have been my wedding. But now, everything is ruined. A nearly 6-year relationship ended just like that, out of nowhere. Of course, something like that is very hard to accept. On top of that, I had so many people flooding my phone with consolation messages. Some were still sending apologies on Marcia's behalf, and most just had nothing useful to add to the conversation. So they would write random messages just to say hello or something like that. But I felt so empty. It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of days, which it had. I was already struggling to deal with everything emotionally. I decided I would try to talk to my parents to clear my thoughts. But when I went to see them, I could tell they were also very affected because they were quite emotionally involved in all this. Naturally, Marcia and I had been together for almost 6 years and had practically grown up together since we were 19, so it's a big blow for everyone involved. I thought my parents were going to comfort me and tell me I did the right thing. But instead, when I tried to talk to them about what was happening, at first, they didn't say anything. Finally, they told me they didn't think I did the right thing. When they said that, I felt like my world was falling apart. I was already having a lot of doubts about what I had done. And for my parents, of all people, to say they didn't agree with what happened was the last thing I needed to hear. Since then, I've been in a very strange mental state and can't stop questioning myself. I haven't even found the energy or mental capacity to talk to my friends about this. Finally, I found this place here. I don't know who else to turn to at this point and really need completely impartial opinions because I'm very lost. So am I the bad one for canceling my wedding after my fiancée left for an impromptu bachelorette trip 2 weeks before our wedding and refused to come back when I asked her to? Update 1. Thank you to everyone who commented on my post. It's been 4 days since I wrote, and I've been reflecting a lot on what happened and what you all wrote. I've really read and considered it. I spoke to my parents about what they said and told them it really hurt me. I didn't think it was fair for them not to be on my side and console me. Instead, they made me feel like I was the bad one and that I had overreacted. I mean, after sharing my story here, almost everyone in the comments was outraged on my behalf. So I really don't think I did anything wrong. As my parents, they should be the first to understand. They listened when I talked to them, but still, they didn't seem to get it. They told me they only said what they felt and there lies the problem. I can't understand how they feel I'm the one who's wrong here. My fiancée literally went on a vacation with her friends without even informing me and then refused to come back when I asked her to. I think that's a big deal. It's not like I didn't warn her about the consequences. She knew I would cancel the wedding if she didn't do what I asked. I don't even think my demands were that unreasonable, especially considering we were supposed to get married. So after all this, how can I be wrong? It's baffling to me that my parents don't seem to understand. They keep telling me they understand I'm upset, but that it's still a very insignificant reason to cancel a wedding and end a nearly 6-year relationship. It wasn't easy for me to do it either, and the least they could do is be supportive, but they don't even seem willing to do that. I've tried talking to them about this a couple of times, and each time we end up fighting. Now I don't think I'll keep trying to talk to them or make them understand my point of view. If they don't understand, I don't think there's anything else I can do. They can keep thinking I'm the bad one here, but I know what I did and why I had to do it. Life has already gotten very hard for me in the last few weeks, so I don't need them contributing to that. Aside from them, I've also had to talk to a couple of other people, mainly friends who were forwarding all the messages Marcia wanted me to receive. As politely as I could, I explained to them that I was already going through a very tough time and didn't need them to keep sending me the messages Marcia wanted to get to me. It was just making everything harder for me emotionally. I asked them to stop sending those messages because I didn't want to read them. I don't even care if I seem insensitive or whatever. I just wanted the whole situation to stop. Most people stopped after that and told me they were very sorry for forwarding the messages. They said they felt bad for Marcia, but would respect what I wanted and stay out of it. That was most people. But a couple of mutual friends started attacking me after I sent that message. They called me selfish and said I was destroying a relationship just out of pride. These people have known me for quite some time. So if that's really what they think of me, I have nothing to say to them. If my own parents can misunderstand me, I don't think I have the right to expect anything from my so-called friends. When they started attacking me and trying to emotionally manipulate me, I didn't even bother arguing with them or trying to make them understand my point of view. I had already learned my lesson with my parents, so I just blocked them and decided to move on with my life. I know that right now, everyone thinks Marcia is the victim in this situation, and that I'm the controlling insensitive one who left her just because she refused to come back from a trip on my terms. It's very surprising that even after knowing the whole story, there are still people who feel sorry for her. As far as I can remember, I mentioned every detail in the message I sent people explaining why the wedding was cancelled. I guess I'll never understand these things, but oh well. It doesn't matter anymore. What's important is that the relationship is over, and I'm not going to marry this girl. I've started trying to make peace with that fact, and it's better if everyone around me tries to do the same. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to my parents. Since our last argument, my parents haven't tried to contact me, and I'm not bothered by it. If they can't understand my perspective by now, there's nothing more I can do about it. Most of the other people who had been forwarding me messages from Marcia have either given up or been blocked, so that's resolved. But a couple of days ago, surprisingly, the friends she went on the trip with reached out to me out of the blue. Of course, I had already blocked all of them at the same time I blocked Marcia because I didn't want anything to do with them. After that, they hadn't tried to contact me, probably because they didn't have the nerve to do so until now, I guess. Anyway, they reached out by writing me an email saying they were really sorry for everything that happened. They said they realized they shouldn't have made such a rushed plan and involved Marcia. Instead, they said they probably should have given her good advice, rather than encouraging her to ignore what I had said and keep enjoying the trip with them. I don't know if they were really apologizing or digging an even deeper hole for her. When I realized that they had actively encouraged her not to return when I asked her to and to ignore me, I felt even worse about the situation. I don't care what they said or did. I just found it pathetic that Marcia, as an adult, let herself be influenced to end up in a situation like this. That's how she ended up ruining everything we had for a stupid trip. She's not a teenager who had to give in to peer pressure. She knew what she was doing. This made me so angry that I didn't even bother reading the rest of the email. I deleted it immediately. I didn't care about their apology because I knew the rest of the message would be the same old speech asking me to forgive her or at least talk to her or whatever. I didn't need to hear that from them. If they were truly her friends, they would have cared about her relationship and advised her to do the right thing. They didn't. So I don't need to see or read anything they have to say now. Besides, it's too late. I've already started trying to move on and have accepted that the relationship is over. There's no way I'm getting back with Marcia. The last thing I needed to do was let her know when she could come by to collect her things, and that would be the final closure I needed. I had been waiting for some time because I didn't feel ready. But last night, I finally contacted her parents and told them she could come by any afternoon this week to pick up her things. They tried to get me to talk to her while I was on the phone, but I hung up before that could happen. As I said, this was the last step I needed to complete to finally start moving on. Now that I've done it, I don't think I'll ever need to speak to her again. I'm ready. This is over. Update 3. Marcia finally came to pick up her things. I knew it was going to be hard, so I had already mentally prepared myself for the worst. Luckily, it wasn't actually that bad. I contacted her parents almost 10 days ago, letting them know she could come any afternoon that week to collect her belongings. But of course, it took more than a week for her to finally show up. In the meantime, Her college friends probably realized I hadn't even read their email and started trying to message me from a disposable phone. They skipped all the nonsense from before and went straight to the point in their messages, telling me that Marcia really missed me and was willing to do whatever it took to fix our relationship. All I had to do, according to them, was simply talk to her. They were literally begging me on her behalf, but I blocked them again. After trying to call me from several numbers for a couple of days, they finally stopped trying. For the past 5 days, I haven't heard from anyone. Then yesterday afternoon, Marcia's parents called me and told me she would be coming today to pick up her things. Surprisingly, they even apologized for everything that went wrong, and told me they wish things could have been resolved differently. They said, "That's how life is and we all have to deal with it." That was shocking to hear. I guess maybe Marcia finally changed her mind about trying to win me back and had accepted what was happening. I felt a bit bad about it because this meant things were really coming to an end. But this is exactly what I wanted from the beginning, so I accepted it. She came a couple of hours ago with her dad. I stayed in the guest room instead of the living room, so I wouldn't have to see much of them while they packed her things. It took them about an hour and a half to finish completely because, of course, we had been living together for the past 4 years. That meant we had a lot of shared belongings. When they were finally done, her dad left the two of us to talk privately because I had asked for it. I didn't have anything specific in mind to say. I just wanted to say goodbye and have that closure, I guess. So that's what I did. It was very awkward, and she started crying. She told me she was very sorry that things had to end this way and that she wished she had been a better partner. But as her parents said, that's life, and it's too late to change it. Seeing her cry made me start tearing up too, which I didn't want. So we quickly hugged, wished each other the best for the future, and then she left. When she was finally gone, I ended up crying for an hour before I could calm down. But I needed it. I needed to see her one last time and end things on a note that wasn't as bitter as the last time we spoke. Of course, it's still not a happy ending, but it's not as terrible as I expected. I wouldn't say I'm happy now, but at least I'm glad I got some closure. Everything hurts right now, but I know it's not the end of the world. I'm still pretty young and have a lot to look forward to in life. I guess I'll focus on my work, try to keep myself distracted from everything that went wrong, and just move on in general. Update 4. It feels very strange to post an update almost a year after the wedding that never happened. Looking back, I think it was the right decision because I'm much better off now. At first, it was very hard for me. I wasn't on good terms with my parents, and of course, the person I had practically decided to spend the rest of my life with was no longer in my life. My mental health really suffered. But with the help of some good friends, I started to get back on track. I started going to the gym, working hard, and partying just as hard. I also started therapy a couple of months after the breakup. Since then, I've made a lot of progress. Although I wouldn't say I'm completely healed, I'm definitely handling everything much better now. My parents and I still haven't spoken. In fact, they've even blocked me everywhere. I guess they're too proud to admit I made the right decision for myself, but that's okay. I no longer expect better from anyone. And honestly, I don't care anymore. Marcia and I also hadn't spoken, and I had kept her blocked. But interestingly, we ran into each other at a restaurant a couple of weeks ago. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and it was very awkward because she was with her coworkers and I was with my friends. Honestly, I was considering leaving when she walked over to my table and said hi. She made an effort to be nice to me, and I did the same. It was a surprisingly pleasant interaction. That's why I'm writing this update now, because I remembered how bad I was around this time last year. But now I feel quite content with the life I have. Update 5. I wasn't sure whether to make this update or not, given how much time has passed. My wedding would have been over 18 months ago, so it doesn't affect me as much anymore. If you haven't read my previous update, I ran into Marcia, and we had a cordial conversation. However, I recently found something out, and I think it's worth sharing here. Marcia was unfaithful to me during her bachelorette party. This doesn't change anything at this point. It doesn't make me angry or sad since we're no longer together. But I do feel relieved because if I had married her, I'd be dealing with a divorce now. Just the fact that she left without telling me and ignored me was bad enough. So finding out this new information only reinforces that I made the right decision. For the curious, Marcia was with a man who was part of a group they met during the trip. The worst part is that other friends of hers who were also in relationships were on the trip and are now facing their own issues. This perfectly sums up why I dislike bachelorette parties. If you need to say goodbye to being single by doing this kind of thing, you probably shouldn't be getting married and should be honest with your partner. I know some comments had speculated that she might have been unfaithful during the trip, so there's your answer.